Welcome to Get and Keep Biz video learning series. My name is Tim McMahon, and I'm going to take you through this scintillating presentation on market research like you've never heard market research presented before. Market research is planning, collection, and analysis of data. That sounds like fun, but it really is because it helps us find the important insight that's going to move our company in the right direction. It is all about making marketing decisions. It's about the communication of the results to the analysis to the management, the communication. Finally, it's tied to the execution of the plan because it forms the basis for marketing analytics, which is the backside of the alpha and the omega, if you will. Question: are you perceptive?
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
I know it's a trick, and you may have seen it before, but it really is a tool to explain to us that we can sometimes not have such great command of the power of observation. So there's two observations on the power of observation. One is we can be blind to the obvious, and secondly, we are also blind to our blindness, which is a core of a lot of problems when it comes to research because we tend to focus on the wrong things sometimes. So let's try to understand that the most important thing we can do is to remember this sequence. Data should lead to information. Data can be words, pictures, any number of things. Information should deliver insight. And insight creates competitive advantage. That's the continuum as we follow through in this module on research. Why research? Very simply, we try to understand that research is the alpha and the omega. This section is titled research. The next one big video we'll get to is something called analytics, market analytics. But essentially, research is the alpha and the omega. It informs the decision, evaluates the performance, the front and the back. It turns data into actionable knowledge, and it orients members of the firm to data-driven decisions and implementation. Consequently, this becomes the focus of research as opposed to some boring set of statistics and correlations and such. We'll try to bring some understanding as to why those things are important. Research is essentially systematic inquiry along two approaches, qualitative and quantitative. Think of it as words and numbers. Qualitative, informal, subjective. It's not necessarily, we know that there's bias involved. Used to develop insights and understanding of variables in their natural settings. We're seeking to understand knowledge that we may not know even exists. Quantitative is the numbers. It's the formal, the objective. We presume to be objective, even though we can never wipe out all of our objectivities. We're human beings. Systematic empirical investigation of observable phenomenon through statistical analysis. Yes, that's the part that scares everybody off. Don't be scared. We'll proceed through this. There are two types, theoretical and applied. Applied is what you and I really benefit from. Did that ad work? Theoretical kind of expands the knowledge base, helps us to understand the things we should be thinking about and trying to research and understand more. Applied basically comes in three forms: programmatic, selective, and evaluative. So applied becomes, first of all, programmatic. It helps us develop marketing options through segmentation, market analysis, consumer attitude and usage, those sorts of things. It's selective because test decision alternatives like new products, messaging, in-market testing, A/B, used at any stage of the marketing process can help us improve our decision making. And thirdly, it's evaluative. It's used to assess program performance. How did we do? What are the analytics telling us about our activities? Or should we adjust? The roles of market research basically then become these words in red: planning, collection, analysis, which we always know about. That leads to the decision making. And then finally, the two pieces: communication is necessary because management needs to know so that they can make decisions about marketing and determine if the results were achieved. This basically gives us a wonderful benefit. By using research in this manner, we orient the firm to data-driven decisions. And that is very popular these days, and it's also popular because it's very effective. It's effective in implementation with attention to describing, diagnosing, and predicting. So let's take those three words and kind of break those out and see how that works into our research. 3 tasks, 5 analysis. Describing, diagnosing, predicting. The 5 types of analysis are descriptive, inferential, exploratory, causal, and predictive. Probably not going to be a big test on this anywhere, so let's not worry too much about remembering it right now. Let's worry more about understanding it. Essentially, describing is descriptive, and diagnosing is inferential, exploratory, and causal. And predicting, of course, is predictive. So we get into these questions sometimes about the difference between causation and correlation. Correlation means that things can actually look like they influence one another, but they just happen to be correlated. We're looking most of the time for serious causation. Did that really cause that to happen? Was there some relationship there that was, or was it just spurious? As changes occur in the external environment, marketers must determine if and or how to adapt their strategy. And this leads us to a couple of different areas. And it leads us to understanding that there are method or a combination of method that we can use to satisfy the project's objectives. We can use surveys, research in which an interviewer, actually in a mall or on a telephone, interacts with respondents with specific questions. We're trying to measure, trying to gain some sort of statistical understanding of how things relate. Observation, which is simply trying to look and say, hey, it's like understanding the milkshake situation. What job are people hiring that milkshake at McDonald's to do? And experiment. Experiment is very costly and very involved. It is research to measure causality. This is very important because it does get to causality, in which the researcher changes 1 or 2 variables and observes the effect of the changes. So this all comes back to what we said before, is that the first challenge is identifying the problem. And that is essentially, why is the information sought? What do we want this for? And it could lead to these questions. What information is sought? How will it be used? Can we prioritize the questions? Second component is understand the decision-making environment. Who's making this decision? This may lead to exploratory research to gain a greater understanding of a concept. Or maybe we have a great understanding of the concept, and we need to crystallize a definition of the problem. What research activities must be conducted is what we have to get to, because if we don't do this particular step, what we're likely to do is overspend or spend on something we're not going to get any benefit back from. Is it primary research? Can we do it through secondary, which is much more efficient? Do we use focus groups to explore ideas, or surveys to kind of measure where people stand, the numbers of people and what they think and the intensity with which they think? Case studies to understand how other people did it. Interviews to get a deeper understanding of the way people talk about something or do something. And the internet itself. We can study the internet and how that works, and the analytics that the internet will cough up if we're smart enough to understand how to interpret them. We'll do that in our next video, by the way. So we look at routes to obtaining decision data. So first of all, let's understand what data is. Facts, figures, and observations pertinent to the problem that we want to understand our problem. Now, it may be so good that our problem has already been studied by a number of people, so there's some secondary data out there, already gathered, already recorded, already accessible, and all we have to do is a good solid search of the web or internet or your library or wherever it happens to lead us, that we will find the best information on the secondary front. Primary is when we have to kind of go out and collect our own data, make our own surveys, make our own studies or case or not case studies, but focus interviews and such. That's the primary. We're really asking our own questions and trying to understand more specific about our own. In the secondary area, there's 2 things we look at: internal data, lots of stuff inside the company, inputs, budgets, financial statements, sales reports, and outcomes, actual sales and customer communications, and how they might have correlated by date or time or season. External data. We can gather and show a bunch of it at the end of this deck. U.S. Census Bureau, trade association studies, business periodicals, there's a ton of it. On the primary side, we really look at 3 kinds of things we want to do: observational, questionnaire, and other sources. Observational is those mechanical techniques, personal techniques. neural marketing techniques where we measure brain waves and all that wonderful stuff and scan eyes and that sort of thing to see what people look at. Questionnaire data is idea generation techniques. What do you think of this compared to this? Which one would you think might have a better idea? And they're also evaluative kinds of techniques. Other sources include panels, experiments, longitudinal studies, which will measure people's attitudes about things over time, information technology, data mining, where we look at millions of bits of information in a system and try to find some sort of rhyme and reason as to why and what factors matter. And social digital, which we actually take a pretty good deep dive into the social and digital environment. We'll see more about that in analytics. Market research from the business problem to the research objective is the core. That's what it's all about. We want to understand what our business problem is, recognize the problem or opportunity. We then move to the next stage, which is understanding why the information is needed. And that takes us to the understanding of the decision-making environment. Who's going to be the decider, if you will? And what are we going to have to do? How are we going to have to make that happen? We use symptoms to help clarify the problem. We may see that, gee, there's some things here that don't look right. Symptomatically, consumers are not responding to our ads or something like that. And this then gives us the ability to translate this management problem into a marketing research problem. And that's where the rubber meets the road, because what we're really trying to do is we're trying to determine whether the information already exists, which we can go to secondary data and save ourselves a ton of time and money, or we have to actually go to primary and conduct the research ourselves. We determine also whether the question really can be answered. That may sound silly, but sometimes it's a question that isn't necessarily going to be answered, or at least it may not be answered without a great deal of cost. Finally, the objective is to restate the research objective. So essentially, we will do all this research, and generally we come down to 5 kinds of generic objectives. This is experience talking and lots of things, and essentially these 5 show up a lot. Build awareness, influence consideration, improve the sales process, reposition the brand, and grow loyalty, broadly speaking. We ask questions in these areas. In building awareness, do consumers recall and recognize my brand? In influence, do my products satisfy consumer needs? In improving sales process, do my sales efforts result in wins for my brands at the point of sale? Do the experiences fulfill customer expectations, and do consumers advocate for my brand? Those are just headline questions in each one of those 5 areas of marketing objectives that give us a chance to kind of begin the pursuit of the information. Let's take this one, grow loyalty, which is the 5th. And this is the way we might pursue understanding more about that particular problem that we're translating, that business problem, translated into a research objective. The key question: how has consumer interest in our brand trended over time? That gives us perspective. Are we down? Are we up? Probably down, because otherwise it really wouldn't have been something management wants to look at. What consumer group is our strongest advocate? In other words, where's our terra firma? Where can we actually build on here? And how might we find that? The third question might crop up is, which marketing programs have grown advocacy? I mean, is something out there working? What is it? Now, we take those key questions and we apply basically the analytics or sources of information or tools that we can apply to help us answer those questions. If you're trying to understand how has consumer interest in our brand trended over time, you could actually go to Google Trends, a free tool, and look at search volume. Search volume for your category, for your specific product, brand, if it's big enough and able to be trended and tracked. Also, we can look at CSR databases and understand about customer inquiries, those internal kinds of things that we will find as we discussed before. With respect to what consumer group is our strongest advocate, pretty easy to do. We could do a segmentation study and understand, are we hitting the segment that we originally set out to attack and attract? These consumer group segmentation studies can be very informative because they will tell us the movements that may have taken place, pro or con for us. Twitter offers something in the Twitter API that provides Twitter volume, basically through the app itself, understanding where certain things are trending, moving, acting and on our behalf or against us with regard to the conversation on Twitter. And then finally, which marketing programs have grown advocacy? Look at the Marketing Advance. Go to your own company intranet site. determine what activity has really been generated. Use hashtag volume. That's very popular. Obviously, everybody's hashtag is the word of the day. You can't go to a party without saying hashtag, or you're just not cool. So we use a tool like Topsy, for example, that will track hashtags for us. So essentially, what we're trying to get through here is a series of other places we may go to generate a great deal of understanding about what is available out in the market, just that is currently out there and available. We call research the alpha and omega because on the front end, research helps us identify the issues and opportunities that inform strategic decisions, and on the back end, marketers establish marketing analytic to measure effectiveness. So that's the front and the back. This list provides a possible areas of ideas that you may pursue to understand more. For example, clickstream analysis. It's the what. Foundational data that helps measure pages and campaigns and gives us a read. And such things as Yahoo Web Analytics. Yahoo's not real popular these days because of that little glitch. Google Analytics, Piwik, FeedBurner, Google Webmaster Tools, Bing Webmaster Tools. Outcomes analysis. This is the how much. A website can deliver three outcomes, essentially: increased revenue, decreased cost, and customer satisfaction or loyalty. By using Clickstream, ERP surveys, Technorati, and more, we can really come to an outcomes analysis. Mongoose metrics, if by phone, live person, those are some of the examples there. Third is experimentation and testing, A/B testing, testing ads, and so forth. The why. This measures real-time reaction of real customers. You can run experiments live on your site with various options and let your customer tell you what works best. This is the whole concept behind fail faster. I want to understand what works and what doesn't, and let's stop doing what doesn't. Google Website Optimizer, Optimizely, AdWords campaign experiments, those are the sorts of examples there. Voice of customer through surveys and lab usability testing, remote usability testing, card sorts, and more. You can direct feedback from your customer on your website. Such things as Qualaroo, formerly called Kiss Insights, usertesting.com, Loop 11, Concept Feedback, Bounce, Google Consumer Surveys. Fifth is competitive intelligence, very important. The what else? ERP and CRM. This becomes the way that we deliver data to customers. But the www, the web, delivers information on competitors, providing context for your performance. So we have the internal. This is the external. How do we understand what's going on outside? Compete.com, AdWords keyword tool, and Google Trends and Google Correlate all give us sources to pursue information about our competitors. Finally, miscellaneous kinds of emerging data sources and tools, such things that we see in the marketplace are Clout, which has been around for a while, Analyze Words, Topsy, Tweetbinder, Think with Google. These are the kinds of tools that give us a little measure as to what kind of activity and action and power we have in the marketplace with respect to social and digital media. So, rules to live by. Generally speaking, establish a clear, focused business question. No question about that. Critical. Refine it to a research question. Have a process that, A, yields a response, B, is in context. Yes, in context. Makes sense for the business we are in. Free from bias, as free as we can get, or at least recognize the bias, which is another important part. Methodologically sound. Capable of being replicated and then finally reported in a manner in which one can take action. We'll try to investigate these as the course proceeds. Review. Research is the alpha and omega of business success. We begin gathering the pertinent data. The challenge is to turn data into actionable knowledge and convey that in a compelling manner to the management. The first question we always need to get to is how do we compete in the market? And then we go on to understanding how the business problem question is going to be affected by what we do and how we articulate that is going to be turned into research questions that will serve to decide our methodology. What don't we know? And then research methodology, of course, is the scheme used to deliver insight into opportunities, challenges, two broad approaches, qualitative and quantitative, two types, theoretical and applied. And finally, there are 5 general areas of business challenges: build awareness, influence consideration, improve sales process, reposition the brand, and grow loyalty. And those are generally the 5 areas that we will end up investigating. There's some more information and resources. And the next thing I want to talk to you about in the next video is marketing analytics, the processes and technologies that are used to evaluate the success of marketing initiatives. That means measuring performance of tactical efforts. such things as message effectiveness, digital, social, and traditional media delivery vis-a-vis sales and customer feedback.